Hey there friends, it's Laurie. Today I'm sharing some budget Christmas DIYs. I have a Christmas tree sign, a sweet winter snowman star, and a holiday wreath with just the right amount of sparkle. To help keep the cost down, I did use mostly Dollar Tree and Temu supplies. So with that, let's get busy. Getting started, I'm using 3 sets of white tree ornaments from the Dollar Tree. I only need 5, so I'll hang on to the other one for a future project. I'm painting the first 3 using some forest green acrylic paint. I made sure to paint both sides, and if you see a little white peeking through, not to worry, because we'll be adding on some snow. My second set of trees, I'm painting with sage acrylic paint. Now that I'm done, I'm going to give each of them a hint of snow, and I'm using some white acrylic paint. I'm using a small paintbrush, and with no plan in mind, I'm just dabbing a little bit on here and there. I added this accent on to all 5 of my trees. I'm painting all of the tree trunks, and I'm using some golden brown acrylic paint. I'm attaching the trees to a base, and I'm using an 8x10 wooden sign. I picked this up for free on the side of the road. There were a few others, and I think they're from a long ago wedding. I used the same white acrylic paint and gave both sides a coat. Now that it's painted, you can always leave it as is. I want to give mine a bit of a rustic vibe. I'm using a piece of heavy grit sandpaper. I'm sanding down all 4 sides and on the top. Now that I'm done sanding, this is how mine looks. I'm finding the placement of the dark green trees on my sign first. Using my E6000, I'm attaching all 3, 1 inch from the bottom of my sign. I'm centering the light green trees between the darker ones, aligning the trunks with the bottom of my sign. I think this looks really pretty as is, but because this is a Christmas video, I'm going to add on some ornaments. I like to use Mardi Gras beads, and I'm sticking with the classic Christmas colors of red and green. Using my scissors, I'm cutting the necklace into individual beads. Using my E6000, I attached the red beads randomly onto the green trees, and the green beads onto the light green trees. I want to hide those little holes on top of the trees because they were originally ornaments. I'm using some foam stars, and I found mine at Michael's. I'm painting all 5. I'm using gold acrylic paint for 3 and red acrylic paint for 2. Once again, I'm using my E6000, and I'm attaching the 3 gold stars onto the tops of the 3 dark green trees. I'm then finishing up adding the 2 red stars on the 2 light green trees. For the top of my sign, I found a 2-pack of wooden believe signs at the Dollar Tree. I only need 1, and I painted it in the same light green paint. I added E6000 to the bottom part of the word and then centered it on the top of my sign. To finish up, I'm using a leftover piece of nautical rope from the Dollar Tree. It measures about 36 inches, and I'm attaching it to the back of my sign using some E6000. Now that I'm done, this pretty Christmas tree belief sign is ready for the holidays. I'm popping in to let you know that today I'm participating in my monthly friend group collab. It's being hosted by my sweet friend Liana from Liana DIY. We have 2 guest hosts this month, Crafting My Best Life with Lisa and Crafting with Maria. All of these ladies have amazing DIY channels, and you can check them out along with my other crafty friends. I'll have the playlist linked below in my description. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below and leaving me a thumbs up. To all my returning friends, I always look so forward to seeing you, and I can't wait to chat with everyone down below in the comments. Getting started, I'm using a 12 by 12 wooden star from the Dollar Tree. I removed the jute hanger because I'll be adding on something different. You can paint your star any color. I'm using a version of blue called Cloudy Sky. I'm adding a snowman onto my star, and if you're good at freehanding it, then just go ahead and paint one on. Myself, not so great, so I downloaded a snowman from Pinterest. I'll link the snowman below in case you'd like to use it, and once I had it cut out, I found its placement on the star. Using my pencil, I pressed down firmly on the outline of the snowman. It didn't leave an indentation in the wood, but enough of a line so I could see where to paint. I used my pencil and I darkened the outline so that it was clearer for me to see. I'm giving my star a splattered effect, and I'm using some white acrylic paint. I'm using an old paintbrush, and you can always tap it against something. I'm just flicking it off of my finger and adding it onto the star. I let the splattered area dry, and now I'm filling in my snowman with the white paint. I'm giving my snowman some eyes, and I'm having him look upwards. I'm using the end of a skewer. You can always use a paintbrush. I'm dabbing it into some black acrylic paint and making 2 dots. I'm adding on his carrot nose. You can always paint it on. I'm using a wooden skewer. You can find these at the Dollar Tree. I'm painting the pointy end with some orange acrylic paint. It's completely dry, and I'm using my clippers to snip off the end. I'm adding E6000 to attach it. The nozzle has a wide opening, so I'm first adding some to the end of my skewer and then onto the nose. From there, I attached it onto his face. For the arms, I had this berry stem on hand, and I'm cutting off the end. It's wired, so I folded it to the right size and used some E6000 to attach it onto my snowman. For my snowman's hands, I'm giving him a wooden star, and mine came from the Dollar Tree. I used some spice red acrylic paint and gave it a coat. I added E6000 to the back and centered it on his hands. For the snowman's scarf, I'm using a piece of Christmas gingham fabric. I just had this on hand. It's about 5 inches long. I folded it in half and attached it to the snowman using some E6000. You can always leave your star as is. I'm using some heavy grit sandpaper, and I'm sanding around all the points on the star. I'm hiding that hanger hole on the top, and I'm using 2 small pine cones. These came from a pack. I got them a while back at the Dollar Tree. I added a generous amount of E6000 on the top and then hid the opening with the pine cones. I'm adding a sign just above my snowman's head, and I'm using one of these wooden Happy Holiday signs from the Dollar Tree. I painted it with the same spice red acrylic paint. You can attach it as is. I'm using a piece of fabric that matches the scarf, and I'm attaching it onto the back. I added E6000 to the back of the sign and attached it just above the snowman. I'm making a hanger for the star, and I'm using two 20-inch pieces of heavy jute. I'm painting one of them white, and all I did was add some of the white acrylic paint into a baggie, placed in my jute, and then squished it around. When I was done, I straightened it out, then made my second hanger in the spice red paint. Both of my pieces are dry, and I'm taping two of the ends together. I placed the tape end under a heavy paint bottle, twisted the jute together, and then taped off the other end. When I was done, I turned the star over, added some E6000 to both sides, and attached the hanger. My last accent is adding on a little snow, and I'm using some of these snowflakes. They came in a Dollar Tree pack. They're super sticky, and I added them onto the star. This is so cute and easy to make, and it's the perfect addition to my winter decor. To make my berry and pine cone wreath, I'm using an 18-inch balsam wreath that I picked up at Michael's. I bought it during last year's Christmas clearance, and it only cost me $2. I want to give the base a little kiss of snow, so I'm using some white acrylic paint and dabbing it on here and there. All of the greenery that I'll be adding onto my wreath came from Temu, but you can always find the same type at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. I'm using 8 pieces of flat pine, but the stems are too long, so I'm cutting them shorter. They need to be long enough to stick into the wreath, but short enough that they don't stick out in the back. I'm evenly spacing all 8, having them face towards the outside of the wreath. Happy with their placement, I then used my hot glue gun to attach them. I'm now adding on 16 pieces of lamb's ear. These stems were long as well, so I also cut them short. I'm adding the first 8 to the center of the wreath, and just like the pine, I'm going to first evenly space them. Then, to be sure they don't move, I hot glued each in place. For my last 8 lamb's ear, I'm hot gluing each stem, attaching them near the outside of the wreath in between the other lamb's ear. For my next addition, I'm adding on 8 stems of pine with red berries. Before permanently attaching them, I want to find their placement, and I'm tucking one in between each of the inner lamb's ear. With everything in place, I'm now attaching them with my glue gun. I'm adding on 8 pine cones, and as most of you know, I basically live in a pine forest, so I have millions of pine cones, and these came from my yard. I'm using 8, and I tried to keep them all about the same size. I treated them in a 200-degree oven for about 25 to 30 minutes, and that dried out all the sap. Like the others, I evenly spaced them on the outside of the wreath before hot gluing them into place. I always like to do that first because if I'm not happy where they are, it's so much easier to be able to just pull them out and move them than if you've already hot glued them into place. The pine cones are permanently attached, and now just like the base of my wreath, I'm using some white acrylic paint and dabbing it onto the pine cones. It's a very subtle accent, but I think it gives them that snow-kissed look. I'm adding on some of the small silver round ornaments, and I did find these at the Dollar Tree. I'm using 8, and to help keep them together, I'm going to slide 2 each onto a wire. I have my 4 sets, and now I'm evenly spacing them on the wreath. And now, once again, I'm using my glue gun to attach them. I think this is so simple and pretty, and you can always hang this as is, but I'm going to add on a bow. I'm using some of the Dollar Tree pretty sparkly silver ribbon, and this will match nicely with the ornaments, and all I'm doing is making a simple bow. I'm using about 48 inches. I made an 18-inch tail, approximately 2 4-inch loops, and then finished up with a 22-inch tail. I slipped an 18-inch piece of floral wire through the back loop of my bow and then attached it onto the wreath. I twisted the wire tightly on the back, and you can always cut off the excess. I usually just fold mine over. This wreath was so easy to make, and I think it's perfect for the Christmas season. Here we are at the end of this Christmas video, and I really had fun crafting, and I hope you did too. Please be sure to check out my crafty friends on the playlist, and if you're new to my channel and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to come back and hang out with her again, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. I'll leave a playlist of Christmas and winter ideas down in my description, and you can come back and check those out later. My wish for each of you is that you have a safe, a happy, and an amazing day. And until next time, Bye, everybody.